Hello everyone, I'm back with a brand new video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Bret Hart WrestleMania 41 Elite Series figure. So this figure takes inspiration from his WrestleMania 4 attire. If we look at the back of the box, matter of fact, we look at the front of the box, we see Bret Hart in what is a very un-Bret Hart outfit if you grew up watching him in the 90s like I did, 90s and even to the early 2000s. But Bret Hart has really this is more of a different look for him, and this figure is from the WrestleMania. Well, if you read the back of the box, we have of course, the image of Bret, we have the image on the side, so this is clearly Bret from the late 80s, before he really took off as a superstar, single superstar. And the description on the back of the box reads: "The Hitman destroyed Bad News Brown's Battle Royal trophy after he was double crossed by the hated villain at WrestleMania 4. And from what I recall at that WrestleMania 4, I believe that would have been in 1988. And WrestleMania 4 WrestleMania 1 was in 85. So WrestleMania 4 would have been 88. I'm sorry, I'm tripping. Yes, 1988 on WrestleMania 4. And it was a battle royal, and Bret Hart was in Bad News with the last two in, if I'm correct. And of course, I have not watched that battle royal. I've never watched the full WrestleMania 4 card, but I do remember Bret Hart getting upset and taking the trophy and smashing it in the ring. That's one of the images that sticks out to my mind from that WrestleMania. And also, let me back up. This figure is a Build-A-Figure series, so all the parts build a Howard Finkel figure. Howard Finkel, the greatest ring announcer in wrestling, well, to me, wrestling history. And we see the other figures in this series: Seth Rollins, Hulk Hogan, which I have that one, and Bianca Belair. So let's get into it. And again, hope you're all having a wonderful day today. It is definitely a little chilly. It is definitely fall. Fall's been here for a while, but this actually is feeling like fall consistently here in North Carolina. It has been a pretty good day. Not too hot, not too cold, but definitely, of course, and we definitely have that fall crisp outside. So it's officially hoodie season. And I just like to open these a little more clean than what I normally do, especially after that last one. And thanks to everyone for watching the recent Hulk Hogan videos, and just checking out all the content. Definitely appreciate all the comments, likes, subscriptions. So thank you for everyone for checking out this channel. It is much appreciated. It does not go unnoticed. And these little plastic strips, my goodness, I despise these. Okay. Got them on the feet too. You really don't have them around the legs. Okay, there we go. All right. So during this time, Bret Hart was still primarily a tag team wrestler in the Hart Foundation with his, I think were they brother-in-laws? I think, yeah, the late Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And really cool figure though. It's cause you kind of have like the singlet vibe, but then with the the pink pants. And I just like the black and white because so many of Bret's figures are the traditional, the multiple variations of his attire from the 90s. But this is definitely a little what I call a deep cut figure, getting more of those 80s Hart Foundation era Bret's. And then you got the singular pink heart right there, and then very basic stripes down the back. And if you look at Bret's trunks, his tights throughout the 90s, the sides got more elaborate with the little kind of, I guess, fire burst and with the skulls and other decorations. So this is a much simpler time. So very just basic black and white stripe down the side. You got to have the classic boots, the white, pink, and black. And Bret Hart, back in his era, him and Neidhart definitely stood out because they were among the few male wrestlers wearing pink back in the day. And I heard someone say that in fact, it was in high school, and I think I've seen it like on the internet. I've seen it in a meme, I'm sure, or something. But I remember back in high school, like senior year, You know, there was a guy in the class talking about how Bret Hart was rocking pink before Cameron, and of course Cameron is the, you know, famous rapper who really caught attention because he started wearing pink back in the day, like back in the 2000s, when it was a very non-traditional color that you saw rappers wear. Cam would have the pink, you know, the huge pink jacket, fur jackets, and the pink bandanas, him and the Diplomats, Dipset. So yeah, so interesting just connection with hip-hop and wrestling, as there is a lot of intersection between those two worlds the more that I think about it. But yeah, Bret Hart, I mean, what can you say about Bret? This is from an era where he was definitely climbing up. He was definitely about to make his jump into the singles realm. This was 89. This was 88. By 1990, I believe maybe it was 91, is when he had the classic match against Mr. Perfect, winning his first Intercontinental title. And then from there, he was about to set course on being a legendary performer. He was kind of bubbling at this moment. Within a couple of more years, he was going to be making, you know, those strides to really become one of the all-time greats in wrestling history, which as we know him as today. And Bret Hart, I have a love-and-hate relationship with Bret Hart. I love Bret Hart. I mean, he is one of the most, I mean, in terms of wrestlers from his era, I really think he is among the most influential in terms of just so many wrestlers who are major stars today in AEW and WWE. I mean, cite Bret as their biggest influence. CM Punk has gone on record. FTR has gone on record. Drew McIntyre, you know, so many wrestlers are influenced. And it's countless more, but just so many wrestlers are influenced by Bret's style. And Bret's style, it's a motorcycle that ran by, I hope it didn't interfere, but Bret Hart's style, and when you go back and look at a lot of wrestlers from that era, from the 90s, late 80s, Bret's style really translates more to this current era than a lot of them do. And that's why you can watch a Bret Hart match today, and it's not that far off from, a Bret Hart match from, the 80s and 90s, and it's not so far from what you see today in a lot of, wrestlers in terms of the psychology and even the moves used, and just a lot of just those little things that Bret Hart did in his matches that have carried on. And the thing I dislike about Bret, and then Bret Hart too, was just a regular guy in the era of giants and outsized personalities. I think Bret Hart stood out because he was just a regular chill guy. And he stood out because he had pink and long black hair, which he looked different than any other kind of main event star of his era. And then the other thing about Bret too, the only thing I don't like is just this never ending beef he has with Bill Goldberg. I think it's petty. He needs to just forgive him, move on. Every time Bret gets on a podcast or gets a mic in front of him, you can guarantee he's going to say something negative about Bill Goldberg. However, I have been very amused with his recent negative comments towards Triple H. And the one thing about Bret, which is the only thing I like about Bret, the only thing you have to respect is that Bret is one of the few legends that does not care. He really does not give a about what anyone thinks his opinion. He is one of the few major WWE stars who is still, part of Hall of Fame and Legends deal and does appearances every so often that will get on a podcast or in front of a mic and he will criticize Triple H's, wrestling career, his legacy. He is not afraid to say very politically incorrect things in regards to his thoughts on the current product and Triple H more specifically, which you don't see a lot of that today. So Bret Hart is a very interesting figure, but again, one of the all-time greats. I just love this. And another thing too about Bret, I just love to see that Bret is he's here and that he is living out the fruits of his wrestling labor. And what I mean by that is that so many of his peers, so many of his family members have passed away. I mean, Jim Neidhart, Owen Hart, British Bulldog, other guys he was close to who were pretty much family like Brian Pillman and such and such. And Bret Hart has suffered more loss, more personal tragedy than most wrestlers, I believe. I mean, when you just look at so many people that he was close to that passed away, Chris Benoit in that situation, and then you just look at him today, and when you see him at a fan fest and see him, with fans and doing signings and just really, he is a success story. And with what he went through personally in terms of his stroke and his own physical well-being, Bret Hart is definitely an inspiration. So he is, again, one of the all-time upper echelon greats in the history of the professional wrestling business. And again, he's the best there is, the best there was, and the best that there ever will be. And my time is up. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend. And I will talk to you again after a while. Peace.